So, welcome everybody to my fall series for 2020. Today, we are going to be looking at crafting sentence stems for English learners utilizing the question matrix. So, I am Gabriel Verone. I have been at Education Service Center Region 11 for a year and a month. I started as an on-campus instructional coach and have been a part of the English learner support, doing primarily ESL and bilingual support and those kinds of professional developments all online now. I will actually be going to some campuses in just a couple of weeks, so I'm super excited about that. I kind of miss, I love doing this. I love getting to do these bite-sized professional developments in the afternoons, but it's nice to be with actual humans. So looking forward to that. So here's my Bitmoji, right? So he's fall themed. He also weighs about 30 or 40 pounds less than I do, so I really like that. This is my wife, April. She is a nurse. My son Malachi is 13. My son Zachary is 8. And we love Harry Potter. We just finished reading all of those aloud. And I also work part-time with preteens in 5th and 6th grade at Southcliff Church in Fort Worth. If you have not had a chance to put your own greetings in the chat, feel free to do that. Let us know who you are, where you teach, or what campus you're on, and what is your role in working with English learners. All right, let's look at our agenda for today. We're going to explore the question matrix and how it helps teachers to craft questions at the appropriate depth of knowledge for specific TEKS and standards, okay? We're also going to explore sentence stems and why they are important for helping students develop both spoken and written academic language. And lastly, we are going to create questions and accompanying sentence stems for specific TEKS using the question matrix as a guide. And what you're going to see is that if you craft a good question, crafting the related sentence stem for students to answer that question is very simple and straightforward. So the title is a little deceptive because really we're going to work more on crafting questions than sentence stems, but they go hand in hand. All right, so let's look at what is the question matrix. And the question matrix is a questioning tool that allows us to generate questions at increasing levels of difficulty, okay? So here on the x-axis, right, you have some question words: is, does, has, did. I'm not gonna read them all to you because you're able to read, right? But what I want you to notice is that they give you some clues as to when you might use these, whether you're talking about something in the present, in the past, if you want possibility or an opinion, all the way to supposition and imagination, okay? Then when you pair those with the y-axis, right, what, where, when, which, okay? So what is, right, what is happening in this story is a relatively easy question, right? What might happen if this character did this instead is a much more difficult, right? Then if you say, well, how might this story change if these conditions change, right? That then is the most suppositional, requires the most forward thinking and imagination on the part of the student, okay? So we are going to look at the question matrix, all right? And we're going to use it not as an exclusive tool, but as a tool to help us analyze how can we craft questions and related sentence stems, not just for English learners, but for all of our students, so that they can demonstrate their learning both in speaking and in writing, okay? Now, I'm going to give you, in the words of Keanu Reeves, whoa, I know Kung Fu. You're not going to know Kung Fu, but you are going to know how to use the question matrix when we're done. All right, so I'm going to give you a question matrix that you will make a copy of in Google, and you can edit, so you literally can type into the boxes and use the guide words to assist you. So I'm going to stop my share real quick, and I'm going to jump in there and drop that into the chat for you, all right? So I thought that, because they gave us like these fancy new double screens at work, right? Which is supposed to make it easier to have multiple windows open, but it's not. It just makes it almost impossible to do anything. So I still have to grab the stuff, stop sharing my screen, All right, go ahead and click on that link, and you should see a new page that says click to make your own copy of the question matrix, okay? Please let me know if that does not work. It should. I checked it. I changed all the permissions. Anyone able to open it? Can I get a thumbs up or a vigorous? Excellent. Okay, if it works for one, it should work for all. So Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. We're going to call it a day. No, I'm just kidding. All right. And again, if you're like, oh man, I can't do that because I'm on my phone, you have that QR code that you can scan as well. All right. So go ahead and have that question matrix open. That is going to help you. All right. And then that is your permanent copy. You can leave that one blank and then just make another copy to fill out. Or on that same document, if you just copy and paste multiple times, you can fill it out that way. So however you want to do that is entirely up to you. All right. And if anyone ever sees you using that tool and they're like, wow, that's really great, where did you get that? Tell them that Morpheus gave it to you. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. All right, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it, it's okay. Okay, so let's see it in action, all right? Because it sounds really dry and boring. So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't invent the question matrix, right? It's a tool that's been around for a long time. And the gentleman in this video has an English accent, and I've been told, especially by Ross on Friends, that if you talk in an English accent, everything you say sounds intelligent and authoritative. So even if you're like, Gabriel, I've learned nothing from you, you should at the very least learn from the Englishman, okay? And he's gonna just give you some concrete examples of what the question matrix looks like in a classroom setting when asking students, all right? So let's just watch a few minutes. Oh, you know what? Sorry. I totally did not put share computer sound. All right, now I did. All right, please let me know if you cannot hear, unmute, put it in the chat, but you should be able to.
You can be asking at home, might be asking in a maths lesson. So, for example, quite an easy question to ask is, what is 2 add 2? Straightforward question, requires one closed answer. If we want to make that question more difficult, we can start adding, change the vocabulary. So we can use which and would to ask this question: which numbers would add to make 4? And obviously we've got 1, 2, 3 and 5, so it gives children a choice, which is obviously part of this which, and also it talks about the probability of the answer being correct. And then to take that one step further, to make it even more challenging, we can use how and might. How might we create a total of 4? And that's much more open-ended. It gets a child to use their imagination, and it gets them to develop the understanding of what a total of 4 means. So a total of 4 could be a total of 4 in terms of weight of something, a total of 4 grams, but a total of 4 grams would be different than a total of 4 kilograms. And a total of 4 meters would be different than a total of 4 centimeters. So it really starts to get that child thinking about what the quantity of 4 means. It doesn't just have to be 4 apples. It could be 4 meters, 4 centimeters, 4 miles per hour. It could be lots of different things. So it's much more open-ended, and this really develops the child's deeper thinking. So if we think about that in English instead of maths, I've got a picture of from the film Up here, and we can ask different questions to do with this. So a basic question that we might ask about this picture and this story is, what is happening in the story, or what is coming out of the house? And that's basically a quick answer. It's closed. We're just expecting one short answer. But we can ask a different, slightly harder question. Where should the house go? Where should the house go? So it's a choice and an opinion of where they should go in the world. Or when should they go? What time would be an ideal time to fly your house? And we could go right up to how might, for example, how might the house land on the ground? How might the man get back down to the earth? And that would develop much more of a creation, imagination in the child, and get them thinking much more deeper about the story and about problem solving. So it develops their critical thinking. And you can see how the level of difficulty it will take for the child to answer those questions. So what our aim is with this video is for you as a parent to really develop your question skills so that you can...
All right, I'm going to stop it there, because this next part you're going to try. Sorry, once you make it full screen, it gets jacked up. You have to then exit the presentation and then go back in. Otherwise, it never quite formats properly again after that. By the way, did you notice he called it maths? That's right. So if you're working with maths, I didn't know maths was plural, but apparently in England it is. Who knew? I think I might just do the rest of the chin like this. All right. Amy Cooper is not impressed at all. She's like, sir, can you please please don't comment on my awkward jokes in the evaluation, okay? Okay. So you guys are gonna have a turn, okay? The gentleman, Sir Englishman McKnightley, displayed this question of the two ferocious dinosaurs, right? So you're going to work collaboratively in a breakout room for 3 minutes, and you're going to write 3 questions at different levels of difficulty using the question matrix. The questions can be anything. The point is simply to practice using the matrix and to intentionally think about the differing levels of difficulty, okay? And then you're going to choose one person from your group to either unmute and share out 1 or 2 of your questions, or if you would prefer not to do that, you can simply put them into the chat. All right. So the best thing to do when you're in a collaborative breakout room like this is just choose one person to share their screen, and they can open up that matrix. And then as you guys talk, that person can type in there. And then if you would like, you can share that with the rest of your folks because you're going to be in the same breakout room 2 other times. Okay. Are there any questions? I'm going to drop these instructions in the chat for you. If there's any questions, please drop those in the chat now, or unmute yourself and ask. Because I'm putting them in the chat because once you go to your breakout room, the instructions will be gone. You will no longer see them. Okay, there's the instructions. Okay, if there's no questions, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. I'm just going to open up 2 rooms. Maybe. There we go. There's my breakout rooms. You should see an invitation in the center of your screen. If you do not see one, please let me know. Once everyone is gone, Marie, do you not see it? No? It says you're in breakout room 1. You didn't see anything though? Okay, I'm gonna move you to 2 and hopefully you'll see it this time. Anything? No, that's really weird. Huh. I don't know about that. Marie, my recommend is anyone else seeing the invitations? Oh, you know why? Because I didn't hit open all rooms, that's why. Wow, it was a long day, guys, I apologize. Let me know if you have any issues. If not, I will see you in 3 minutes. Ginger, are you good? Oh, okay, very good. All right, welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we're gonna share out briefly. Hopefully you chose a representative from your group, and you can drop your questions in the chat if you would like, or if you would like to unmute and kind of share those out. And then I do have a couple of additional questions. So who would like to share some of the questions they generated using the dinosaurs?
Okay, so we had 3. They chose me because they said I was your favorite.
Well, I don't know if you're my favorite, but you always make me feel less bad about myself.
Because I laugh at your jokes.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, so our lowest one, our simple question was, what are they doing?
Okay.
Then when did this take place? And then our higher thinking would be, how might smaller dinos have survived in this environment?
Oh, that hopefully they're very fast or travel in packs. All right, excellent. Well done. I don't know what breakout room you guys were, but well done. All right, number 2. So breakout room 1, who wants to jump in? And again, if you're like, I would prefer not to unmute myself, you can drop those in the chat and that is perfectly okay.
Who was group 1? Oh, that was us. Sorry. I've kind of been multitasking. Okay, so we came up with a why question. So it was like, why were the dinosaurs fighting? And then taking it further to where they would have to explain what were the reasons behind the fighting, what started it, and that type of thing.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Is there anything wrong? Because we all know that one of those educational words that they love to throw around when you go to trainings, when you go to planning meetings, rigor. You must have rigor, right? Is there anything wrong with a low-level question? Are they inherently bad? Should you never ask them? Are they unallowed? Are they verboten?
They're not bad because you have to make sure that they understand those lower level before they can think higher level. And with your ESL kids, they've got to have that very concrete part of it. And if they don't have that, they can't do that rigor part. So I don't think there's a problem with having the lower level as long as you don't stay there the whole time.
Okay.
I also think that some of those newcomers don't have the language, and so they might only have enough English to be able to answer those lower questions. Not that they can't think higher, but they might not be able to produce the answers.
Okay, it looks like I struck a nerve with that question. So anyone else want to answer or say anything?
I was thinking building the background knowledge, which is going along with what the other ladies were saying, though, is helping the ELLs with the building background. Like you said, they might already have that background in their L1 language, but helping to build it in English.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Jen, it looked like you wanted to say something. Do you want to, if you don't, that's fine. Do you want to unmute?
My team member ran in and I had to put my mask on and say hello.
Gotcha. Totally cool.
Sorry, it was like, yeah.
That's okay. Well,
Hi, Miss Easley.
Hi.
She's on my campus too.
We're in 2 separate buildings.
I just didn't want to ignore you,
No,
but I'm glad that you know someone. That's cool. So, and the other thing that I would say is, and I really like what Ginger said, right? Is there's nothing wrong with building background knowledge, ensuring that children understand the basic concepts, right? Because children cannot make inferences and leaps in logic with information they do not possess or understand, right? So the other thing that we're going to look at is it's really important to know what is it that I'm trying to teach, and then to what level of mastery or difficulty does the standard actually ask me to teach it? Can you teach it beyond that level? Of course, but you have to teach a lot of standards, right? And for the sake of time, it is okay to say, this is the level of difficulty that the standards say I should teach at, so I'm gonna live there and we're gonna move on, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen one more time. So, no, I don't want to mute myself. That's the wrong button. Okay, let me share my screen and let's keep going. Okay, so we talked about the question matrix, and that is the tool that we're going to use to help us generate questions and then accompanying sentence stems for our English learners and all of our other students to be able to respond using academic language, right? But let's take a look at what sentence stems are, when they are appropriate to use. Now, I have 2 videos. I'm pretty sure that overwhelmingly our audience is elementary or middle. Do we have any secondary people? Is there any secondary folks out there that I don't want you to feel ignored or, okay. So I'm just going to show the elementary one, and I did it again where I didn't press share computer. Oh no, it is clicked. Apparently, once you click it once, it's good. All right, here we go.
Sentence stems are a simple way to teach important information to students so that they can use it again in the future. It's a simple sentence structure where they can plug in important information and use it independently.
The number can be rounded to because it is closer to. Now, does that mean anything yet?
No.
What do we need to do to give it meaning?
Write some words.
We need to write some words or maybe some
Numbers.
numbers. That's right.
Sentence stems are a really simple structure for organizing knowledge. It's a way for students to understand concepts really simply in vocabulary that they understand.
The number 8. Andrea, you're next. The number 8 can be rounded to
10.
to 10
And tell me why, Kevin Rizzo. Because it's closer
to 10.
They have blank spots so they can plug in the information that they know, and that way they can use what they know as a framework to use in the future on their own. Sentence stems help writing because it's repetition, and it helps reinforce a lot of just the mechanics of writing, punctuation, capitalization. Plus, it's another way for the kids to organize their thinking. Reading and writing go hand in hand, and it just reinforces everything that we need to teach the kids.
Okay, so just a couple of quick words, and not that it really matters. Please be aware, a sentence, really what he was using were sentence frames, right? A stem has a beginning part and then an open-ended ending. It can be a simple ending, but the children just fill in one blank, right? When you have multiple blanks, it's a frame. I'm just telling you in the literature that is the case, so that's really the only difference there. The other thing that I would say is they are very specifically talking about using sentence stems for writing, and we should. But there's nothing wrong with using sentence stems for speaking as well. And if you're like, well, I have a child that can't read, or they're in pre-K or kinder or first, so they're an emerging reader. So how does me having a written sentence stem help them? Well, you write it to reinforce, right, that written language, and then you model it and you repeatedly ask for it and you reinforce it, right? You get more of what you expect and what you reinforce. Okay, so let's continue. Just real quickly, sentence stems should do the following. And again, this isn't an exhaustive, exclusive list, but it hits the high points. It should allow students to discuss the lesson objectives and or the essential question, right? So what is it that I need my kids to know? In that video, he wanted the kids to know the rules for rounding, right? And so he designed a sentence stem that would allow them to fill that information in and to use it in speaking and writing, right? It should include other critical vocabulary. You saw in the video, right? This number is closer, can round to because it is closer to, right? So he embedded that academic vocabulary that scaffolds the learning so that they could demonstrate their mastery of the objective, right? So you also need to think about what is the critical language that I want the children to produce, and does this stem actually allow them to give me that language, okay? And then I like when I write sentence stems to either underline or highlight or circle important words, because it's a visual clue to the student. Oh, I need to pay attention to those words. Or if I introduce some lesson vocabulary and then use it in the stem, I might underline it or highlight it so that the students get that extra layer of reinforcement. Okay, so what we have to ask ourselves is, in order to use the question matrix to actually generate questions and sentence stems, what is it that I want my kids to know? Okay, so what does my standard say? What are my verbs for student outcomes? Once I see what it is my kids are supposed to do in a specific standard, I can then look at the depth of knowledge. And I'm going to pop this into the chat and you'll have this depth of knowledge chart. Okay, so just give me a minute and I'll do that once I finish reading this. But once you see the verbs, right, you can say to yourself, oh, okay, this is a level 1 TEK, right? This is a relatively easy one. Chances are I'm going to ask relatively easy questions to the top left of the question matrix, right? If I'm in level 2, then I'm going to move down probably to some harder questions. And then I'm at level 4, right, with the TEK, then I'm going to be asking those questions at the bottom right-hand side with the suppositional language and how or might, those kinds of words, okay? Then I'm also going to ask myself, what is the relevant vocabulary in the standard? What are the words kids need to know that I can intentionally put into questions and stems, all right? What questions can I generate, and what sentence stems will allow students to show that they have demonstrated mastery? My internet connection is unstable, so if I'm freezing, I apologize. All right, I'm going to pop the link to the DOK, the depth of knowledge chart, into the chat for you. And we're going to practice this in just a minute. Okay? Come on. All right, so go ahead and click on, oh, Jen, you have a question. Sorry about that. I didn't see you a moment ago. Go ahead and unmute. What's your question?
Thank you. Are the DOKs equivalent to the HOT questions?
So yes, the depth of knowledge is aligned to higher order thinking according to Bloom's taxonomy, but they're not like a direct match. You see what I'm saying? They're in the ballpark, right? So they're pretty close, but it's not like a directly aligned tool. See what I mean? Think of it, it's less like Legos and more like Lincoln Logs. So they go together, but they don't directly connect. Does that make sense?
That's just a newer phrase. I've been teaching for a while, but I just had never heard DOK, so I didn't know how new that term was.
It's not that new, but if it makes you feel any better, I was in the classroom for 12 years, and I didn't really discover DOK until like year 11. It would have been nice if someone told me that a long time ago.
Same here. Year 12, but I'm on year 14, so year 12, and then I discovered it 2 years ago. So I didn't know how they aligned or how they.
Yeah, so they're pretty close, but they're not like 100% because Bloom's is different, because the guy who wrote, or guys, I don't know who it is, who wrote DOK, they wanted to make money on their book too. See what I mean?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so go ahead and open up the DOK chart, depth of knowledge. All right, and now let's take a look at it. Oh, I have one more thing to give you. I'm going to drop this in the chat too. Let me just do it now. Sorry about that. I realize it's a lot of me coming in and out. If there was some other way to do it, I promise I would. Okay. So that other link, you can open that as well. I like to give folks planners so that you can look at the process and it can be broken down in a simple way. So that list of questions that I had on the previous page, okay, right? You put your standard here, and you can highlight or underline your verbs, okay? You can then look at those verbs and compare them to what DOK is it. Once you've kind of discovered, oh, I'm at this level of depth of knowledge, 2 or 3. And again, it's not perfectly aligned to the question matrix, but it gives you an idea of how difficult your questions probably need to be for students to show mastery at the intended level of difficulty that the standard was designed for, okay? Then you can use the question matrix to generate some questions, and then you can write some sentence stems to directly answer those questions. And if you're like, that's very abstract, let me show you what it looks like in practice, okay? So we're gonna use a story everyone's familiar with, The Three Little Pigs. So if I was doing 3rd grade ELARTIC 8B, explain the relationships among the major and minor characters, you find explain at DOK 3, okay? So it's not the hardest, but it is a relatively difficult question, okay? So I need to, and then notice I've highlighted explain, and then the relevant vocabulary is relationships, and then major and minor characters, right? So technically there are no minor characters, right? Obviously the 3 main characters are the pigs. The wolf is a main character because he's the antagonist. Technically he could be a minor character, right? Because he's in the story less than them, but that's really quibbling, okay? Then, right, since I know that I'm here, I've gone ahead and written a range of questions, right? I went ahead and did a what does the way each pig builds their house tell you about their personality, right? I want to do character analysis, right? So this guy built a house out of straw. Why did he do that, right? This guy built it out of sticks. The other guy built it out of bricks, right? So what does that tell you about them? Then I literally want the children to give me that question, right, as a complete sentence. The way each pig built his house tells us blank about their personality, right? And this is scaffolded because, like some of you said, if I have a newcomer or I have a child that's low in English proficiency, they need that help. If I have a child that is higher in their TELPAS, right, that is almost equivalent to a native speaker, their advanced high, they can take this stem and then build upon it, right? And they're going to give me more information, okay? Why do you think the wolf attacked the pigs in the first place? So here I'm analyzing the character of the wolf, right? And I'm asking a why question. Why do? So it's still a relatively easy question, but it's harder, right? Now, because it's supposed to have, the TEK asked me to analyze relationships between them, right? So I'm going to go to the very hardest one, how might, okay? Again, this is higher than the TEK demands, but how might the story have been different if the pigs had worked together to build a house? Okay, and then I have an accompanying sentence stem. The pigs had worked together to build a house. The story would be different in the following ways, right? If this child can only give me one way, great. If they can give me multiple, even better, right? Now, if I'm saying doing character analysis, but I want to roll some predictions in there, right? Who do you think will succeed in the story, the pigs or the wolf? Why do you think so, right? So again, who do? So again, this is a relatively easy question, but I've tried to bump it up to DOK 3 by asking a who question, which is a little further down on the y-axis, okay? So, does anyone have any questions, comments? And tomorrow, I will send you a follow-up email. If you've been with me before, you know this. You will have this full PDF presentation. And if you're like, oh no, I can't find the links to these planners and resources, I'm gonna send them all to you. So you don't have to keep track of all that. Anyone have any comments or questions before I give you some intentional practice on this? Jen, go for it.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. If I didn't want questions, I wouldn't ask you.
Oh, thank you. So I opened what you put in the chat, and then were you to make a copy? Because that's what I did.
Yes. And in the copy, you should have my original. And then if you scroll down, or I'm sorry, there should be a blank one. And then if you scroll down, it should have my questions in there as well as a guide for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Oh, now I didn't want to bury the lead here, but, and again, I didn't come up with this. I'm going to give you a bunch of depth of knowledge question stems that are already written. These do not directly align to the question matrix, but if you see the depth of knowledge of a specific standard, and then you want to use those questions with the question matrix to kind of finagle them, I figured that would at least give you a nice starting resource. So if you're new to this process, you have that as a guide for you, okay? I feel like I'm being too serious. I think it's been like 7 minutes since I've made a joke. I don't know, I'm having a hard time here. Okay, so again, that's this. I didn't want to bury the lead. I didn't want to show this to you at first because, again, what I like about the question matrix is I feel like it makes you really sit down and think and be creative with how can I ask this? Because you can write a real simple question, right? And then you can transform it and scaffold it up. And the other great thing about that is if you know the level of your children, right? You should have their TELPAS results if they are an English learner. You can group them, right? And say, okay, I'm gonna put my low and medium together and I'm gonna give them a little more simple scaffold, right? And you can put your advanced and advanced high together and you can give them something a little harder so they can still be answering the same kind of question. They can still be demonstrating mastery, but they can be doing it at their level. And then as they see success, you can then say, you did so great on this one. Here's a little bit harder. Try that. See how that works for you. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to give you, because we're doing great on time here, I'm going to give you 8 full minutes. Okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to think about this teak. This is, oh, I apologize. I didn't put third grade. This is, no, just kidding. This is either 4th or 5th. I don't know. I didn't put the grade level. That's my bad. And I checked this multiple times. Pretty sure this is a 5th grade math team. Represent data on a frequency table, dot plot, or stem and leaf plot marked with whole numbers and fractions. Now, what I would recommend here is, I would say, because I did not make a copy of this, that's my bad. I wasn't thinking. Sorry. I would say somebody snap a picture of it, or all of you snap a picture of it, of this part of the screen, so you can look at that, right? And then you're gonna go through the process with the planner. You're gonna underline or highlight the verbs in the teak, right? You're gonna determine the DOK, then create, if you can't get the 3 questions, create 1 or 2. Create 2 questions for what would you ask students about this, right? How would they transform data from one type, such as in a tally table, to a dot plot or to a different data source, okay? Once you come up with 1 or 2 questions at the appropriate depth of knowledge, then go ahead and turn that question into a sentence stem, making sure that it includes the relevant vocabulary, okay? So take a picture of the math problem. It doesn't have to be that exact problem you write questions about. I just wanted to give you at least one resource so that it was easier for you. And I'm gonna put the TEK in the chat for you, okay? So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'll resume share in seconds if you haven't taken your picture. And I'm gonna, hopefully 8 minutes is a sufficient amount of time. Okay, there is the TEK in all of its glory, so copy and paste that. Okay, here's the screen if you have not, oh dang it. Take a picture. If you need more time, let me know because I have to unshare in order to open the breakout rooms. Can't do it while your screen sharing apparently. Anyone else need a second to take a pic? All right, looks like that's a no. So I'm gonna send you back to your breakout rooms. You should see the invitation. And remember, just use the depth of knowledge planner and do the 4 steps, okay? Stephanie, Jen, you guys good? You're able to, oh, Jen, I need to send you to a room. Sorry about that. I'm gonna put you in room 1. Did you get an invite now? There we go, okay. Sorry about that. It looks like everybody is back. So this was a little hard, right? It was, right? But I think hopefully it was useful for you. And then at least the reality is too, if you look, right, the student applies mathematical process standards, right? Application is one of the highest levels of depth of knowledge, right? It's a higher level of Bloom's as well. And have any of you been in a tested grade where you taught this kind of stuff and had students work with these kind of questions? Anybody? So data representation and interpretation of data is almost universally one of the lowest tested TEKs. Like kids do terrible on it. They
Sir,
do. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You froze, so I didn't catch the
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
You're fine.
So, and by the way, Jen, I really appreciate you being super respectful and nice. You don't have to call me sir. You can just call me Dave.
My mom and daddy are Southern, so it's kind of stuck. But
that's fine. I appreciate you though.
Thank you.
It makes me feel like, oh, I'm special. I'm a sir.
No,
Anyway,
thank you.
so if you look, because this is an application standard, right? And always historically, universally in Texas and across the entire United States, data interpretation, data collection, data comparison and analysis is always one of the worst tested TEKs in math for any grade level. That's just reality, right? So I did give you a harder one, but does anybody want to unmute or put it in the chat? What is maybe a question you guys were able to come up with or some ways that you thought they could do that analysis? And if you have a sentence stem too, that'd be great. Jen, go for it.
So our team consisted of, I can't remember the 3 women's names. Miss Eastley, I know.
And wasn't Tao
Yes,
on your team?
it was that young lady, and then the other.
I didn't remember who else was on your team. But anyway, that person's not important. Please don't be offended.
Okay. So we literally dissected the entire TEK and literally came up with saying, like, how can you represent data by possibly, and then in parentheses, that would be the possibly showing a dot plot.
Okay, right. So then they would have to explain, I represented the data with a dot plot by.
And that would be our sentence stem.
Great. And that's perfect, right?
Because
they're literally telling you how they did it and why they did it. And if they're able, and again, even if they're not able to write it, if they're able to verbalize that at all, wouldn't that be a major win? Wouldn't that be so much more than most of what you get in a math class?
Yes.
Right. And what about from the other group? Amy, don't make them always put you out as the sacrificial lamb.
I'll do it this time. So we spent the first minute as non-math people staring at that like a deer in the headlights. But we came up with how might the dot plot change if the teacher were included?
Oh, that's perfect because
And
then they're adding an extra dimension of data. That's
the
great.
dot plot would change, and then that's where they would put the blank if the teacher were included.
I like it. That's beautiful. And again, this is a really hard thing to teach, right? This is a hard standard. So you'd want to think about what kind of questions am I going to do towards the beginning of my lesson cycle, right? Because you're not going to do this in one day, right? And then some of those questions that you guys have elucidated would probably come towards the end of the unit or the end of the, at the end of several days or a few days. Okay. Now, when you get this, if you want to practice, I went ahead and put a 6th grade science teak in there as well. I did have some secondary folks signed up. I think that's the campus where a lot of people dropped. But as you do this and as you use the tool, it's like anything else, right? You have to actually get in there and practice with it, and you'll get more comfortable with it, right? And again, just as Jen said, right, transferring from the DOK to Bloom's taxonomy is not an exact science, and transferring from DOK to the question matrix is not an exact science either, right? You have to use your discretion and you have to use your knowledge and wisdom to come up with, here's where I think this will fall, and here's what I think will benefit my students and allow them to demonstrate mastery. Okay, so last thing we're gonna do before I'm gonna put out the Zoom poll. I always want feedback as to how do you feel about this session? If you feel like, hey, I have a pretty good understanding, then I know that this went pretty well. If I see a bunch of folks that are like, I could really use some more information or support, then I know that maybe I need to turn this into a longer session and give some more opportunities for practice. So you should see an opportunity to take the poll. It's just 3 multiple choice questions. In about a minute and a half, you should be able to answer those. So if you'll answer for those for me, I would really, it says fail to launch polling. That's never happened before. Let's try it again. Anybody see it? No?
No.
That's bad. All right. Okay, now it looks like it opened. You guys seeing it?
It was open for just a second and then it disappeared.
Okay. If anyone else, if you can vote, vote. If you're not able to, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. It's technology. We do have 3 minutes. I promise we will get out of here on time. But part of that depends on you voting as quickly as possible. By the way, if you live in a hole or a cave or another dimension and you have not understood, tomorrow is election day. Hopefully you went out and voted already because you were like, there might be unrest and riots on election day, right? But if you haven't, find a safe polling place and go exercise your constitutional right to vote. All right, I need 2 more folks to vote for me. I would really appreciate it if I could get all right, fantastic. I'm just waiting on 1 more. If I can get everybody, that would really be appreciated. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds so that we can end on time. All right, my last person, and maybe that you're unable to. If you are still filling it out, let me know and I won't close it. But I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3. There we go, 100%. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm not going to share the results because you don't care. Let's be honest. Okay, now this was my beginning of fall sessions, right? There's still a couple more that you can sign up for, right? But those are almost done. And then there's a few more sessions for the remainder. You will get those in your follow-up email. If you have found this worth your time and you would like other academic vocabulary sessions with some digital tools like the planners and things like that, feel free to join me. And then lastly, you will have all of this information to get our ESL and bilingual newsletter. You can follow us on Facebook for the English Learner Support page at Region 11. We have a YouTube channel where all of these sessions are recorded and posted for you. And if you tweet, I'm at Gabriel_Verone. So unless there are any questions, I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for your participation. I hope that you learned something and this will benefit you and your students. And unless you want to stick around for more questions, just hit leave meeting and I will stick around, okay? Thanks so
Thank you,
much,
sir.
y'all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
I do
sir.
have one question. You had one of the